I'm a narcissist.
Was gifted very good cheekbones from God, which is something I thank him for constantly.
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
No, I've been getting a lot of questions about how do I feel? Let's address the elephant in the room.
Please.
For which movie?
She has this underlying anger and hatred in her that always has to take it like one step too far. So first and foremost, we're going to be cast as Snow White. Maybe appreciate the original Snow White.
Rachel Zegler is a loudmouth dope.
God forbid a woman dream about true love. We're all just sitting around here, oh, maybe I could be president one day. I hate men, I just want to be president.
Fastest way to tank your career, go out there and start running your mouth and trashing the original IP of the film.
Disney's Snow White is failing, and the statistics show it. A 1.510 IMDb rating, a $100 million loss, and a barrage of criticism from both fans and critics. But if that wasn't awful enough, Rachel Zegler made it worse with her previous remarks, her demeanor toward fans, and her handling of criticism, which transformed this from a box office failure into a Hollywood catastrophe. Let's examine what went wrong.
Snow White producer's son blames Rachel Zegler for poor box office.
Disney hoped nostalgia would carry this film, but fans weren't buying it from the first trailer dropped. People hated the changes, especially the casting, and many felt Rachel Zegler lacked the warmth of a Disney princess. Snow White was already up against an uphill battle, and the CGI was terrifying. The songs were instantly forgettable, and the audience was completely uninterested.
Be Snow White, or do you hate Snow White? Do you want to destroy Snow White? They went way too woke. They ended up kind of changing the whole movie.
Great, okay? It's great. I'm honored. I don't know why I sound so angry right now. I'm honored. Am I a psychopath?
Critics ripped it apart. Reviews called it toe-curlingly terrible and the most controversial Disney nightmare ever. Even outlets that usually defend Disney couldn't find a silver lining. At this point, Snow White wasn't just bad, it was a catastrophe. But here's where things went from bad to disastrous.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
She's not going to be safe with the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
Even websites that often support Disney were unable to identify a bright spot at this point, as critics tore it apart, calling it the most contentious Disney nightmare yet, and utterly awful. Snow White wasn't just awful. It was a disaster. But this is where things took a turn for the worst.
When a cartoon character that was voiced in the 30s has more humanity and charm than the actual person who was filmed on screen in live action, that's a problem.
Greatest Disney box office bomb in the history, Disney live action remakes, but certainly also the end of her career.
Fans were incensed when Rachel Zegler disparaged the first movie before it was released, calling the prince a stalker and suggesting that Snow White was out of date and unimportant.
I wanted to go on this little baby rant about Rachel Zegler, Disney's worst investment ever in the history of Disney investment.
Then, in response to intense criticism, she abruptly changed her position, claiming that the original movie was a landmark in cinematic history and that the beloved cartoon was a momentous occasion. All of these incredible events that took place for that movie are what allowed you and I to sit here today because it helped shape Disney into what it is, but the damage had already been done.
It's hard being women under the spotlight. People are so critical and just say anything that they would never say to your face.
No.
So, yeah, how has that been for you being able to navigate it?
Just as you said, it's like choosing to be present and know that they are probably just having a really hard day.
Yes.
And I am putting out a movie.
Amen. That's right.
No amount of backtracking could change the fact that she didn't respect the source material because people had already seen the interviews.
At the end of the day, all the people that was rooting on me to fail, at the end of the day, they got to wake up tomorrow and have the same that they had before they woke up today. You know, they got same personal problems they had today. You know, and I'm going to continue to live the way I want to live and continue to do the things that I want to do with me and my family and be happy with that. So,
additionally, she had a similar attitude to LeBron James when he made fun of his critics, claiming that they would still be living dull lives while he remained wealthy and successful. When people criticized her, She dismissed them, saying they were just having a bad day. She acted as though their opinions didn't matter because she was the star.
Always had the vibe of being in the most whitest elite space. Like, this franchise is so white that it's like a black person existing in that was something. And some Star Wars fans tried to say, well, we had Lando Calrissian and had Samuel L. Jackson. It's like telling me how many cookie chips are on the cookie dough. I'm like, bro, they just scattered that in there, bro. But once we touch their heroes, once we lead, once we trailblaze, it's like, oh my God, it's just a bit too much.
He was plagued by that remark for years. Rachel Zegler simply committed the same error. Disney used to have untouchable stars who were adored and revered by the public, but nowadays they continue to choose performers who despise their own fan base. Take John Boyega, who went from being the next major Star Wars hero to accusing racist fans of bringing his character down. In reality, though, his part was lessened due to China's influence rather than the public.
I'm very grateful to be here and to be part of this whole time period. Had we not had the community here to say we will support you in making what we wanted to do.
I was always curious, like, what's that person like? You know, I want to sit down and talk to them. I want to live in their world. Constantly pushing myself. That's why I wasn't going to just make this movie. It was 36 years. How many places I went, how lucky I am. And people asking for this. I did not want to disappoint anyone.
However, he turned against the fans rather than the studio that ignored him, and Rachel Zegler is now doing the same thing. This is the new Hollywood mentality that says if you don't like a movie, you must be the issue, but that's not how it works. Fans aren't required to support a film just because it exists, and Disney hasn't learned this yet. Compare this to Hollywood's greatest hits. Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves shouldn't waste time humiliating their detractors, since Top Gun: Maverick and John Wick 4 were just fantastic films that people wanted to see. They weren't agenda-driven, full of performers preaching the audience or arguing with fans.
Really is the worst casting, maybe, in the history of the film industry.
These big bad feminists now are telling us that's ridiculous. How dare you want to meet a handsome prince and be swept off of your feet and live happily ever after? No, you should want to be the prince. You should want to go out and fight the bad guys with a sword.
If you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
She was, as woke as they are. You know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
It has nothing to do with the creation of Snow White, right?
They simply create entertaining films, which is why audiences continue to see them even if Disney continues to lose billions of dollars. They don't label their viewers racist, sexist, or uneducated if they don't enjoy a movie.
Disney just nose planted remarkably with Snow White and spend $250 million to make a dull mess and sink their damn company.
Woke is a poison apple and Disney have had a big bite of it.
You know what? Maybe Disney does.
So Disney's Snow White flops on Sleepy Opening. Of course it does, because they were disrespectful to their audience and she did a bunch of stuff.
They went woke.
Yeah.
She went out and said stuff woke that was going to hurt the film. They couldn't come out and go against her because they're going after somebody for saying what you say you believe.
In the animated movie, she shows up to the dwarves' house. What does she do? She cleans the house, which is a mess, and she prepares a meal. But in the new movie, you can't have the lady cooking and cleaning. So what does she do in the new movie? She just takes a nap. That's the ideal.
And this tendency will persist until they stop employing actors who treat their own fans like enemies. In addition to starring in Snow White's downfall, Rachel Zegler co-wrote the film, which was a box office failure and was rejected by viewers. And Disney is currently dealing with a $100 million crisis. The message is simple: respect the audience or lose them. What do you think Disney can do to overcome this? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. If you liked this in-depth look, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.